Hey, welcome back. It's Alexander Creek, astrologer and intuitive. We're going to be talking about in this video or in this audio podcast, if you're listening to the audio, we're going to be talking about the astrology um, about the end of June. So that last kind of week of June, really kind of focusing on that really, really magical, dreamy new moon in Cancer happening on the 25th. But there's also some stuff kind of happening around it that I wanted to mention as well. As always, if you're liking what you're seeing, if you're feeling my vibe, like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on that little notification bell so you don't miss an update, and maybe leave me a comment, let me know maybe how you're feeling this energy. And as always, definitely check out your monthly forecast for the month of June and just maybe see how you're kind of feeling that energy so far as we go more into detail about the astrology for the various signs of that monthly video. So let's go ahead and talk about this energy coming up here. So I wanted to make a video for last week, and I did, and I didn't realize that the sound cut out most of the video. And I was like, you know what, I'm not going to record this. But it was what I really wanted to focus on in that video was the aspect of Mars square Uranus and Jupiter square Saturn. And that was happening the weekend of the 14th and 15th. And I was talking about like there was this kind of clashing energy. It was coinciding with all of these protests. And if you were out protesting, stay safe because there was like a higher potential really of violence and like explosive kind of energy. And during that time window, I made some videos a couple days before on TikTok and on YouTube, and you can go look at those. And what I talked about was like, hey, during this date range, everyone be safe. And one thing I did not like see coming, but completely fit that profile was Iran and Israel firing missiles at each other. I believe Israel opened on Iran first, which completely fits with that theme. And also, unfortunately, in the United States, there was an assassination of a Minnesota former Speaker of the House as well, a politically motivated assassination. And that is something that energy kind of speaks to. I was thinking maybe it would be something in like the protests or something, but this is the kind of thing I was sort of warning about and speaking about in the forecast because astrology isn't just like love and light. You can definitely like get spiritual information from it and can kind of help you live your best life. But frankly, you do kind of get information sometimes where you're like, wow, I'm correct. However, this is like a scary development. So I'm just sending some good energy and some prayers into the world. You know, people like the family in Minnesota that is affected by that, the people in Minnesota and in our United States, as well as, you know, going toward the whole Middle East, the whole Middle Eastern region, that this conflict doesn't get worse and that the United States hopefully doesn't get involved, because a lot of the cycles coming up this year, especially with Uranus going into Gemini, does suggest perhaps that the United States maybe gets pulled into an international conflict, and I really hope that that is not the case. So let's talk about some much more optimistic news because we have a really magical new moon in Cancer, and you know, kind of shifting out from this sort of like, hey, this astrology happened that fit the description, super negative. Let's talk about some more positive stuff. So let's talk about this energy with the sun moving into Cancer and then that new moon. Okay, so first thing we're going to talk about is June 21st. We have our summer solstice, and we have the sun moving into Cancer. So beginning summer if you are in the northern hemisphere, and is a really special time of year. And if we look and astrologically, the sun moving into Cancer, that means Cancer season is beginning. And of course, the sun moving into Cancer, there is more of a focus on like feelings and emotions and emotional memory, things connected to family and nurturing. And the sun moves out of like really busy, lively kind of social Gemini and kind of starts to slow down a little bit and kind of going more into the realm of watery feeling versus that super social kind of mentally focused air energy. So there's definitely like a major shift in energy anytime we have that summer solstice and anytime that sun moves into Cancer. So it's going to be there for about 30 days or so. And the first aspect that it actually runs into, the sun is really active right away. It moves into a square with both Saturn and Neptune. First of all, so June 22nd, the sun is going to be square second, and then it moves right into the square with Neptune. Both Saturn and Neptune are in Aries. This to me, given that Saturn and Neptune have both sort of like moved newly into Aries, The sun coming into a challenging, hard angle, 90-degree aspect with Saturn sort of speaks to like Cancer season. We're really going to be aware of like our responsibilities or, our limitations, our challenges. And it sort of like sets this sort of kind of harsh tone right at the beginning of Cancer season. It does not last forever, but it does kind of set this tone of like, yeah, there are definitely some challenges that we are facing right now, which, it couldn't be more apt if you look at the collective and look what's going on, because Saturn can kind of like represent limitations, delays, lessons, responsibilities, but also like challenges, things that we are afraid of. And it is kind of interesting too, by the way, that these protests that were happening were called the No Kings protest. And Saturn in Aries, Saturn is sort of like like the structure of the collective and kind of like the zeitgeist at the moment is partially, I think, Saturn. And Saturn in Aries is very much about like, I'm going to do it myself, individual power first, and really kind of does give that no king energy, because Saturn is in a more challenging place in Aries. Saturn in Aries is like, I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to make up the rules as I go along. So I think that's quite interesting, because we had that Jupiter Saturn square, Jupiter in Cancer, square Saturn in Aries right during that No Kings protest. And from what I understand, I actually had to work during it, but from what I understand, people turn out like record numbers. So that square right away, we can definitely kind of feel like, oh, I have like, there's some extra things on my plate, or I am, again, aware of these sort of challenges that we are facing. The very next day, we have the sun will be squaring Neptune as well. Very different vibe. The Neptune and Saturn are very much kind of in the sky hanging out together, kind of blending their energies together. And if you've watched previous videos, I've talked about, I'm not the only astrologer to speak of this. This aspect is giving like the dissolution of certain structures, breaking down structures and kind of giving birth to something new. We can kind of look at the wall that divided Eastern and Western Germany last time that we had an aspect like this. We had Saturn and Neptune in Capricorn when I was born. I think it was like November of '89 is when the wall came down. And that was when that aspect was uh, you know, pretty close to being exact. So we're definitely seeing some sort of dissolution of various structures in the world, the kind of rebuilding of something new. But in the meantime, before we have this sort of solid new beginning, Neptune can really confuse the hell out of everything. So June 23rd, when we have this Sun square Neptune aspect, there can be definitely some kind of fuzzier kind of vibes to the day. I will say, as the sun moves away from Saturn and more toward Neptune, it does kind of give a more sort of spiritualized energy to the day. It's good for connecting to imagination and creativity, and also for getting inspired on sort of what to sort of take action on. But I'm going to say June 22nd, June 23rd, there's definitely something in the air. And it's almost like we're sort of calling back to maybe stuff that happened over that protest weekend. But I did want to say, as soon as kind of Cancer season begins, the energy is a little funky, and then there's some really, really kind of sweet blessings. So this brings us to November 24th. So let me go ahead and share my screen so I can kind of show you the astrology. This is when we have our Sun Jupiter Cazimi. A Cazimi is when we have one of the planets moving through the heart of the sun, or being like exactly conjunct the sun to essentially to the minute. And by the way, I really only consider it a Cazimi when it is one of the 7 traditional planets. I think when it's a planet that we don't see that sort of visual of that planet kind of going into the heart of the sun, we're not sure it's the same exact energy. So during a Cazimi, Jupiter, the planet of expansion, of wisdom, of spirituality, of morality, expansion, success, blessings, all those good things, will be sort of raised up to this elevated position, because the sun is sort of like a stand-in for like divine energy. It's sort of like, the sun in our natal chart represents our conscious awareness as well as sort of our divine spark. So when a planet sort of moves to the sun, it's almost, you could say, like baptized in a way, not to bring in like Christian symbolism, but it's sort of like purified in the heart of the sun's fire. And it's sort of given this sort of divine instructions, and it's sort of like cleansed, and it's like, again, like raised up to this very high position and given this sort of like divine energy. So Jupiter in Cancer, which Jupiter moved into Cancer on June 9th or June 10th, and will be there for about a year and a few weeks. Jupiter in Cancer is exalted. It is Jupiter is Jupiter, when it is in Cancer, is sort of an honored guest. It is like raised up. It's sort of on its throne. It's raised up to this highest degree. So Jupiter in Cancer, even though it doesn't look like, it's like, how would that be possible with the world kind of on fire right now and with so much kind of going on in the United States? It's like, how could it be possible that Jupiter is able to do good or to bring, luck or success or even like protection to these, to Cancer themes. Cancer themes would be children, families, women, wise women, connection more to our intuition, sort of nourishing our emotion. We're going to be able to have access to that, even if it doesn't seem like that now. So this Jupiter Cazimi happens, and you may be more aware around the 24th about like what specific blessings Jupiter has for you when it is in the sign of Cancer. What good things are going to come of it? What support may come of it? And again, it's going to kind of depend on your own birth chart to see exactly how those things will unfold, or kind of in what life areas they will unfold. I could definitely take a more detailed look at that for you during like a consultation with me. I also suggest that you watch the June 2025 video, because I talk about Jupiter for your rising sign. So you at least get an idea of the life area that Jupiter expansion will be happening for you. And I really feel like that expansion feeling starts this week, the 24th, and then we have that new moon the next day. And again, we're going to start to see more of this, like, because when Jupiter went into Cancer, just like when the sun went into Cancer, we have, it immediately had a square with Saturn, the planet of limitation. And then it had this confusing square with Neptune, just like how I talked about the sun doing the same exact thing. But once Jupiter begins to move away from Saturn, it's really not going to be in a square with Saturn anymore. Like, we'll still feel it to some degree, but because it's a separating aspect, which means that Jupiter is moving away from Saturn, we can still, like, we're going to get more of a sense of that expansion, more like of a sense of that support, of that optimism. And while we still have these sort of challenges that we are facing, or this sense of like, yeah, there's some expansion, but there's also some like kind of shitty things to deal with, because it's a separating aspect, it's going to be lessening in intensity. And we're going to be able to feel that expansive, that juicy expansiveness of Jupiter even more, essentially. So 24th just feels like a really, really special date. And I would also be paying attention around this date going into the new moon on the 25th, which we're going to talk about in just a minute here. This is a time to kind of keep a journal on you, or to kind of keep track of any sort of insights that you might be having from this Jupiter Cazimi, because oftentimes, like when we have a Mercury Cazimi, we always have a Mercury Cazimi during some point of the Mercury retrograde cycle, when Mercury sort of backs its ass up over the sun, and we get information, clarity, solutions, and like really brings a clarity to that Mercury retrograde process. So Jupiter going through the sun, it's almost like it's kind of being reborn again, and you're going to get insight and information, I think, connected to what this Jupiter in Cancer cycle is going to be about for you. So kind of pay attention to sort of little insights from the universe that pop up on the 24th. I would also say the same thing going into 25th. So the 25th, we have this gorgeous little new moon. Little. It's not little. Definitely not little. Definitely one of, I think, the most positive new moons of the year. Again, we kind of had two good new moons in a row. We had a really good new moon in Gemini too. So this new moon takes place June 25th. I forget what day of the week it is, but I'm pretty sure I can trust you guys to look at a calendar. I want to know what it is. Oh yeah, so it is Wednesday the 25th. And this is, let's see exactly what time. So around like 5 in the morning, that day is gonna be the new moon in Cancer. So this again, just hours off this Jupiter Cazimi. So this is really a Jupiterian kind of flavored new moon. So first of all, new moon in Cancer, we this is an excellent new moon to do magic, to make a wish, to, put something out there into the universe, to manifest something, or to simply feel grateful for the good things in your life. Because Jupiter is a planet that I really associate with like gratitude, giving gratitude for the things that you have. And Jupiter, because it is a planet of expansion and magnification, will sort of manifest that sort of good energy that you feed into it, especially in a really, really positively configured new moon like this one. So, a new moon in Cancer, we are definitely going to be connecting to those Cancerian themes of family, of safety, of nourishment, of nurturing. This is very much about tending to self, nourishing your emotional life, taking care of your physical body, having a nice meal, because we still have Venus and Taurus at the same time too. Venus is a planet of love and beauty in her Earth sign home, very focused on sensuality. So really like a nice time to be sort of sharing with others, to be connecting. And it just has really, really, really nice kind of things that we sort of connect with the moon. The moon, again, it's also connected to intuition and kind of just like our vibe. The moon in Cancer, it's a really good time to connect with your intuition, to connect to spirituality, meditation, all of that kind of stuff as well. Um, One thing about the moon in Cancer is the moon rules Cancer. This is the moon's home. This is what the moon does best, is be in Cancer. And whenever we have a new moon or full moon, we always look at that ruling planet. And in this case, the moon is its own sort of ruling planet. So it's sort of like it gives this new moon a very steady energy, and because sometimes when it's like when it's the planet sort of guiding that new or full moon is in a sign where it's sort of challenged in, where it's in detriment or it's in fall, there's a wobbly energy to that lunation. So if you have like a focused intention, if you're wanting to make a wish on something, definitely anything connected to home, to family, to fertility, to children, to taking good care of your body, doesn't matter what life area it is falling in for you in your chart, definitely a good new moon to do some magic. I'm personally going to use this new moon because in September I'm moving, and I haven't moved apartments in 3 years. I'm moving in with a friend, and we want to manifest like a really, really nice place, good price point, good neighborhood. And I was like, I'm confident we can do that anyway because our credit's pretty good. But like, I told him, I was like, we are doing a ritual around this new moon for our apartment. We're going to write a list of what we want. Nothing like, so insane that I couldn't believe it. But I just want like nice neighbors. I want quiet. I want like a nice neighborhood and a really nice place, a good like property manager, or landlady or whatever. And this new moon is going to be perfect for doing that. Granted, Cancer for me is also like publishing and media and teaching because it's my ninth house because I'm Scorpio rising. So it does mean something else for me as well, but you can still use like the basic energy for that new moon. And really, you could use this new moon to manifest like whatever you want. But definitely, it is going to be you're going to be sort of naturally more attuned to those sort of Cancerian themes. So, because this new moon, obviously the other most important part of this new moon is its connection to Jupiter. So it is going to be almost exactly conjunct Jupiter because we just had that new moon sort of Cazimi, and so there is an extremely beneficial, fortunate quality to this new moon. It supports beneficial expansion. It supports protection, opportunity. Um, you may want to connect to spirituality or something sort of philosophical and something scholastic and scholarly, because Jupiter also can represent like study, because it is the ruling planet of Sagittarius, a sign sort of connected with like philosophy and like deep thinking and that kind of thing. You may be more connected to like helping people or sort of charitable endeavors, or like, because especially Jupiter in Cancer is like, it's like about the good of all people, the liberation of all people, and not just, like not just sort of short-term gain. So again, you may just feel connected to these sort of spiritual, sort of charitable kind of connections to Jupiter. But I just really feel like we're going to feel like a sense of optimistic expansiveness and good fortune under this new moon. It's a very like protected new moon. Um, so um, yeah, so really beautiful energy. Check that June forecast to look at the reading for your sign. And because that will let you know also where you can kind of expect some expansion and some good fortune to come in for you throughout this Jupiter in Cancer cycle, because we're right at the beginning of this Jupiter Cancer cycle. So there's something being born in that Cancer part of your chart. There's some sort of blessing, and I'm not saying that you're going to have some sort of miracles for everyone under this new moon. It's sort of like you just want to take advantage of this really beautiful, potent kind of magic, plant a seed, and watch something grow over the next year during this Jupiter in Cancer transit, because that's really kind of what I feel it's about. The other thing is, this new moon is making a nice little sextile to Mars. A sextile is like a helpful aspect. This sort of gives just enough oomph to Mars, the planet of war, but also action and motivation. And Mars is in Virgo right now. It's going to be in Virgo until August. I forget exactly when. That was in my last video that there was an error and I couldn't post it. But Mars is very practical. It's very industrious. It's very hardworking in the sign of Virgo. It's really good at finding the exact system that we need, at like keeping track of things, perfecting things. So under this new moon in Cancer, there's just an energizing, sort of stimulating quality. And it sort of gives like a little bit of courage, I think, to this new moon as well. Like there's a magical, protective new beginning, and it's sort of infused with this energizing flavor from Mars. It's like, yes, dream it, but also like fucking do it, you know. So yeah, really, really beautiful energy. Okay, a couple more things I want to discuss. Mercury goes into Leo the next day. Mercury, the planet of communication, the messenger, the psychopomp, goes into the sign of Leo on I think it's late in the day on the 26th. Yeah, about maybe 2-3 p.m. Mountain Time, Mercury goes into Leo. So Mercury goes from sort of intuitive, receptive, Cancer, like receptive feeling Cancer, to outspoken, expressive, heart on its sleeve Leo. So much louder place for Mercury to be. The interesting thing about this Mercury transit is that a couple days later, it's going to be opposite Pluto. And so that is going to be interesting, because that's between like June 28th and June 29th. Mercury is going to be opposite Pluto, the lord of the underworld. And so this energy on a mundane level, good for researching, good for getting kind of down and dirty with information, like figure out why something works. It's really good for researching or finding hidden or secret information, and you may become sort of like obsessed with an idea, or just really like, it's like, I've got to find out about this. I have got to do the research. I really just am like obsessed with this thing. In a mundane perspective, like from a collective perspective, a geopolitical one or whatever, this is a time when I would look for information to be released to the public regarding maybe more nefarious things or more hidden things. It's sort of like secrets being revealed, things being dredged up for everyone to see. It's like, look at this dark, shadowy thing that is now sort of being brought into the light. So I think that's going to be a very sort of interesting day, and I would be curious to see kind of what would be sort of in the headlines. And it may not even necessarily be like the biggest headlines, but it's like there could just be like sort of like bigger truths or secrets kind of being revealed. And it would definitely be a time to maybe look away from like the noise of like super mainstream media and be like, here's what's important, because there could be other things bubbling under the surface that are released that day that are like, whoa, that's a big deal. That is something secret that was hidden, or something dark that is now sort of seeing the light of day, especially because it's Mercury in Leo being the sun sort of shining its light on something. So that is what we have for this video. And we have a major transit at the beginning of July with Uranus going into Gemini, which is going to be really interesting for the United States, really interesting for your chart as well. We have so many of these outer planets changing signs this year that indicates how 2025 is this really big transitional year. There's a lot of things happening, really kind of moving into this major, the world's moving into this major new era. As far as what it means for your sign, definitely subscribe so you don't miss my July 2025 forecast video, because I go into detail about the major astrological cycles for the month and how that affects your rising sign, or kind of what your rising sign can look forward to. Uranus and Gemini being definitely one of them. So, if you wanted to book a private session with me and explore your chart further, or talk to your spirit guides or past or loved ones, kind of get insight on your life, you can book a psychic medium reading with me or an astrology reading at dogstarOracle.com. Thanks to everyone for watching and for listening. And happy summer solstice and happy new moon.